And yep, so we have the Mista spawning in on the northwest side. Or no, yeah, the Mista spawning in on the northwest side as the Malians and DeMusliM on the southeast as the Chinese. And the big thing we're focusing on are going to be these earlier kind of build openings. Are we going to see any Dark Age pressure? Are we going to see kind of the typical openings waiting for Feudal Age or kind of what exactly?
Yeah, I think we should probably be keeping an eye on Mista's build order this game. We've seen tons of China, but we haven't seen really what happens with the Malian build order in the early game as nearly as much. But just looking at the minimap right now, we can see he's already building some buildings near his gold mine, and he's probably going to be building that pit mine pretty soon, as that's kind of what we've seen out of both our Malian games so far.
Yeah, it's just utilizing those passive resources you can get. You know, if you think about passive resources, especially when you only have 8 or 9 villagers, I mean, that's very, very significant when, you know, it's basically 40 resources a minute per villager. Well, if you get 30 with the pit mine without any houses around it, that's almost a villager in and of itself.
Yeah, it can definitely be very strong. As we've seen, like you don't even need to gather gold with your villagers in order to age up if you build a lot of stuff around that. But oh, actually Mista's throwing us for a bit of a curveball here. He did build the house on the gold mine so he could get the extra income from the influence later on, but instead of building the pit mine immediately, he's actually going to be going for a very early barracks and training a couple Donsos here.
Yeah, the key is against the Chinese. I've seen builds where some people opt to take that gold a little bit late, as we see the mining camp just now going down. Fortunately for DeMusliM, it is at the back of his base. So where will those Donzo try to be aggressive? He could just utilize the ranged attack and try to kind of sit near those berries and force off of the typical berries that the Chinese want to sit on nonstop and just have that IO supervise.
Yeah, something that he could do. So, like, normally if you harass a villager with the spear throw, you're not going to be doing too much, and he's going to be able to easily pull back the villager when it's low HP. But what you could do is you could continue throwing that spear at the Imperial official. And if you force the Imperial official off of the food source or something like that, that's going to be pretty annoying, as he's going to have to, you know, switch up his strategy. He's not going to be getting as much income from the food. And yeah, that could be something we're looking for here from Mista. But yeah, he's spotted the mill, and he's going to be throwing a spear at something. Looks like it's going to be a villager.
Yeah, a little bit of back and forth. Like I said, I think he'll do the back and forths on the mill for the time being. But ooh, looks like he was trying to get into that IO. But I think he should just circle around and maybe get onto a resource node that's a little further out, like gold potentially.
Yeah, he hasn't quite managed to scout that out just yet, but looks like for now he's just going to keep poking at these villagers. It's going to be a Barbican actually going up here to try and defend the mill from the Donso here. This should go up no problem. I mean, these villagers are going to keep eating some spear throws, but he's going to be able to easily pull them back without any problems, I think.
Yeah, it's, you know, that number, you said 1, 2, 3 spears, it still doesn't even matter, as we haven't even seen them do too much damage, and DeMusliM easily able to micro those back. The key is going to be later on, once Mista starts doing a little bit more raiding. If he's been nonstop harassing villagers all throughout this Dark Age, there's going to be a significant amount of low health villagers easy to finish up.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I'm curious to see if he chooses to send a villager along
he
at any
gets a
point to try and build the
kill.
tower.
Look at that. Scout moves a little bit further forward and is able to snipe down one villager. So creating a little bit of a difference for himself. He feels a little bit better about the Dark Age play that he opted for.
Yeah, that's definitely a really nice pick-off for him. That definitely makes everything worth it so far. And yeah, this is just going to make things uncomfortable for DeMusliM as well. Like, a lot of the time you might want to go for a second town center as China very early on, and maybe place it out on one of these hunts or something like that. But you're not going to be able to do that as easily if there's these Donso spearmen out. You're going to have to make a few units yourself, or build the town center more defensively. Or in this case, it looks like DeMusliM is just going to be walling up and trying to maybe make a few units, or maybe go for that Imperial Academy.
I was gonna say
Song Dynasty.
We don't see it, but I'd expect the quick wall to come out for DeMusliM. Is he gonna get it? Yep, he got it out in time. But will the villagers be able to finish the wall and still be able to rebuild it with Donzos being able to long throw?
Yeah, that scout almost got into position to block the placement of that wall, but not quite. And yeah, it looks like that's going to be keeping that gold mine safe for the time being.
Yeah, I think DeMusliM, with him only losing one villager early on, I think he's kind of okay with this. He's secured up his nice positioning, and hopefully he's thinking drop the Imperial Academy, go into Song Dynasty. He just dropped the Imperial Academy. He's gonna go into Song Dynasty, and he's gonna be Song Dynasty at a pretty similar time to the timing that TheMista is gonna be finishing his feudal age job.
Yeah, but something interesting about Mista's build is look at his gold count. He might actually choose to train some cattle and throw them into some cattle ranches very early here, and buff his economy up that way, and keep up with the Song Dynasty boom.
Yeah, that would kind of be one of the options for him. Obviously, doesn't look like he is transitioning into stone yet, like we've seen some of the previous games out of that. As he instead opted for that earlier Dark Age.
Double mill, wow.
Huh. A double mill, just getting those cattle out, and you hit the nail on the head. He's gonna have a ton of gold generation from that fully stacked gold, pit gold, and then he also opted for the feudal age one that gives you that gold over time as well.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the double mill here is he might not be able to sustain double production on cattle from both of them, but something like a wheelbarrow upgrade takes quite a long time from those mills. So most likely he's going to have the wheelbarrow coming in on one of those mills at some point here, and then the other one is just going to continue producing those cattle for him, and he's going to continue putting those in his ranches. And yeah, as you said, it doesn't look like he has any intentions of going for a town center at the moment, but he could just build a bunch of cattle, keep all these villagers on gold, and then quickly transition into a castle age with all the extra food income and the gold income.
And this is really what I was worried about, though, for TheMista right now. Is DeMusliM, he's Song Dynasty. He started supervising the archery range to mass up those Chukanu. It's about, I think 4 or 6 seconds a pop per one. He just didn't overcommit, didn't undercommit. He got about 4 or 5 out and pushed away those Donzos, but now he feels a little bit safer about his base and immediately swapped over to supervising the stone, and he's going to go for 2 TC Song Dynasty now.
Yeah, but I mean, look at Mista's economy already. I mean, he's 2 villagers behind, and there's a couple of those are Imperial officials. But I mean, look at the cattle count for Mista already. It's already 10 cattle, and he has a pit mine as well. So his economy is actually looking quite good at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the resources at the top, he's at 505 gold per minute, and that's 5 times, a little more than 5 times what DeMusliM has over there. Obviously, DeMuslim's not focusing up on gold, as he only had a few villagers there, just enough to kind of maybe get some upgrades, pump out a few Chukanu and Imperial officials as needed.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to be making those javelin throwers as his unit of choice from the archery range here. Makes a lot of sense against the Zhugnu here, as they do bonus damage against ranged units, and they also have 3 ranged armor by default, so they're going to be quite strong against the Zhugnu.
Yeah, it's with those triple shots, ranged armor does so much more against Chinese's Zhuganu rather than regular archers, because it's a triple volley. It does it on every single one of those shots rather than just on the overall damage point.
Yeah, that's right. The Zhugnu has 3 bolts, and each of them do 4 damage each for a total of 12 damage. So if you have 3 armor, you're actually negating 3 of the 4 damage on each of those bolts. So you're really reducing the damage by over 50%, which is pretty good. And yeah, he's got a handful of javelin throwers out now, still continuing to produce cattle. I think he's going to go all the way up to the build limit of 20 pretty quickly here.
Leave it up to TheMista to just, already have multiple different builds, multiple different options over here, and just booming up on the eco behind this. Obviously, the longer this goes for China, the higher villager count he has, but DeMusliM will struggle on the passive side of things, as we see a nice raid on an attempted outpost into the stealth forest that DeMusliM seems to be committing for, and I don't think it's going to go up. It's not.
Yeah, they were Chinese villagers. It would have been very close, but he chose to guarantee saving 2 vills rather than finishing the tower. And yeah, that's a nice catch for Mista.
Yeah, and it should just immediately go try to burn this down. Obviously, being a high view, getting some outposts in those stealth forests is absolutely necessary, as without having your vision inside of there, you just don't know what you can and can't do. You can also spot out any raids coming through and react accordingly, which, you know, information is definitely, I would say, the biggest, most vital thing in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like he is going to be coming back with a few units to escort that villager, and he will be getting the tower up in the middle of the map here. It looks like he has a tower up already on the other side of the middle of the map there, so he's got good vision coverage here. He's already built a wall on the western side of the map as well, so he's put himself in a good spot. Wow, he's actually got a wall ready on the other side, so he's going to go for full control over the middle of the map here. He's going to be walling in a lot of relics and the sacred sites here. And Mista's just going up to Castle Age behind this.
And
but he's gonna find the villager building the wall.
And it's weird to think about this though, with like letting DeMusliM almost take map control as the Chinese. It's not something we see too often. And DeMista is still doing a little bit of raiding around, has a couple of those Donzo that are gonna get cleared on up, but DeMusliM won't be too far behind with his own Castle Age, and he's 2 TC Song Dynasty, 15 vills ahead here. And the longer this goes, the longer it's going to take for DeMista to actually kind of do something on the other side, the scarier this might get for him.
Yeah, but he is going up to Castle Age. I believe it was with the Farimba garrison again, so I don't think we've explained fully how this landmark works, but it basically trains either archery range units or barracks units in batches of 5, and they only cost gold, even your archers, and they're 20% cheaper on the total resource cost, so it's quite a powerful landmark in Castle Age here. It simplifies Mista's macro a lot. He can put a lot of villagers on gold and just spam a lot of units from it, and it's going to make for a really strong Castle Age push here. That being said, DeMusliM is aging himself, and he is China, so he is going to be up very quickly to the next stage.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those cool things you were just kind of talking about. It's only gold, which like typically you'd be like, well, that doesn't sound good. Gold's a very, very valuable resource. Well, not for Mali quite as much. They have all that passive gold that you already talked about. We talked about minutes ago having 500 passive gold per minute. Well, if he can utilize all that for military production, that is a huge advantage. And we already see one of the bigger gold veins that you said can get a higher, up to 120 total gold around it, being utilized for the Mista. So he definitely has prepped and tested this on out. Ooh. Mass migration for DeMusliM might end up, I don't think he's gotten any farms into play, so he's just massing up these villagers and needs a ton of food to be able to support 2TC Song.
Yeah, that is a lot of villagers on that hunt there. But like as you said, he needs the food income in order to produce all of these palace guards. And palace guards are an interesting unit to make against Malians. It makes a lot of sense. They don't have crossbows, and the only way that they can counter the palace guards super effectively is by making Musafati warriors, and that would be an extra unit that Malians are going to have to tech into if he wants to counter those.
Yep.
That being said, he does have some other maybe softer counters with things like poison arrows and stuff like that, but yeah, that could still be a strong answer if Mista's not prepared for it.
And look at how pesky this outpost is that could have been denied fully by the Mista. He didn't full commit to it, and now it's upgraded with multiple upgrades and taking down more units and giving DeMusliM that full vision, that full map control where Mista doesn't know where he can and can't push up now through the middle, as he doesn't have vision through those stealth forests.
Yeah, I have to say as well, I love that Mista decided to stretch just a little bit further to get that large gold mine in the feudal age for the extra income on that pit mine, compared to the smaller gold mine that was maybe a little bit closer to his base and a little bit safer. So it's a good use of the pit mine mechanic there and getting a little bit of extra income from it.
Yep. DeMusliM starting to tech into some more of these technologies, whether it be economic as well as military techs behind this. So he is ready for this full boom, and we just see how strong 2TC Song Dynasty can be if it's left untouched right now. It feels like DeMuslim's taking over control of this game. He has map control. He has villager control. Yes, Mista has that passive gold generation and passive food generation, but is it going to be enough to stop a booming China? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I mean, China's looking to be pretty strong right now with that villager count. We do have to keep in mind that even though it looks like Mista's down almost 40 villagers, he does have 20 cattle as well, which is worth about 15 villagers, so you can bring that up to 65. And then he's also got a few pit mines out, so that's maybe an extra, like another extra 10 villagers. So he's not as far behind as it seems, but yeah, time is definitely against him here. And he's maybe playing this a little bit too slowly.
Yeah, I felt like he had a huge opportunity as those kind of feudal age, castle age especially hit, where we kind of looked up and DeMusliM still hasn't transitioned to farms, so he has the opportunity to be aggressive, but DeMusliM's starting to stack up the Palace Guard number, still has some support behind that with some ranged units, and starting to get in some more of those relics as well.
Yeah, it looks like Mista going to be pushing into the base here. Not going to find any villagers on the what used to be a hunt, but was quickly evaporated by the 30 or so vills that DeMusliM sent there. But he is going to be pushing onto the wood line, but DeMusliM's just going to ignore it, and he's just going to go for a counterattack, potentially on that large pit mine up in the north.
Yeah, I think he knows kind of how much control some of these outposts are giving him, and he just says, all right, if I force your military back right now, this gives me even more time as Chinese. So if you have to pull back from the aggression that you're having, it's putting you on the back foot, and it's letting me have more time, more freedom behind this.
Yeah, but looks like he's just going to go straight to the main base. He's not even worrying about finding the resources, just going right under the TC. He's going to actually catch Mista building a second TC here. And Mista's going to be forced to cancel that. Or actually, he's going to lose he lost almost all the resources.
Look at the stone he has. He has literally 63 stone after that.
Yeah, he was a little bit too slow on the cancel there. And yeah, now that's a pretty good trade for DeMusliM.
That villager count number is starting to be a little bit concerning. Yeah, the cattle's gonna help quite a bit. Yeah, the passive gold's gonna help quite a bit. But if you don't have additional villagers to help support that, I don't really know. And we see Mista falling below 50 again.
Oh no, he's raiding the cattle.
The cattle's going down.
And that's not cheap to replace. That's the one disadvantage, is if you let your opponent get into your base like this, those cattle ranches don't have a lot of hit points. They can be killed pretty quickly, and the cattle only have 24 hit points themselves, so yeah, good pickup from him, just sniping one of those ranches and killing the few cattle there.
Yeah, and yes, you know, you might be saying, oh, DeMusliM lost a ton of military. The whole plan for that was to throw away the military to give himself breathing room, because guess what? He has more than enough resource production behind this to just constantly produce more and more of these palace guards, just send them into the eco, get some siege behind this, as we see 2 nested bees already. And this is, you know, exactly where China wants to be.
Yeah, the only other downside for China in this situation right now is that he does have to make farms to transition and continue making units, whereas Malians, they've kind of already made a little bit of that transition with all the cattle ranches, so they have a lot of the income already, but...
And I think we just saw
that's going to give them a little bit of window. Sorry,
I think we just saw those granaries being dropped, starting to make that transition for DeMusliM. The food income right now is basically nothing for DeMusliM, so he's definitely in the middle of that transition phase. But that's triple granaries with almost full stack farms inside. As long as he can protect this location, he will be good to go with all of his production.
Yeah, it is going to take a little bit of time for that food income to ramp up to something he can actually use along this 3,200 gold he has. So, I mean, Mista might have a little bit of an opportunity here if we look at the military population. There is a lot more military out for Mista. But time is against him. He really needs to make something happen, and DeMusliM's just doing such a great job of like keeping the pressure up with units in different parts of the map.
Yeah, just keeping, like, it's funny with... Once you see that big group of palace guards go through, you're like, okay, I've cleaned it up. But it's funny with hide you, there's always places that like 1 or 2 units can just sit there and hide, and then they come back in and immediately idle a full gold mine with 15 villagers on it. It has a huge effect, even though it's just little resource costs and investment into it.
And we've got Nest of Bees coming out for DeMusliM now as well. And Mista's already trained some Spring Elds, so I imagine they've both seen that. Actually, there's Trebuchets out even for Mista. So going to be setting up a forward position with the towers and the Trebuchets and just pushing the base there. But it's so hard for him to deal with these raids right now.
Yeah, that wheelbarrow you talked about for the Mist is finally coming through.
Classic 20-minute wheelbarrow.
Yeah, it's a classic one. He has a lot of the other upgrades through, and I feel like that's a little bit of an oversight as it helps in all regards with those villagers. Palace Guard's doing a little bit more raiding, and just, again, DeMusliM, he's basically gone untouched behind this. Yeah, there's been a couple times where we've seen Trebuchet or we've seen some siege come up, but then for the most part, Mista's been forced on back.
Yeah, and this is a lot of units that Mista is committing to trying to defend against these Palace Guards, and if he's not careful, Mista could end up like deleting the army in the middle of the map with the trebuchets in exchange. Although DeMusliM doesn't have a lot of vision in this stealth forest here, so he might not be aware of how many units Mista has there.
Yeah, it's just nonstop that put Mista on the back foot and don't allow Mista to do anything to my eco. As we say that though, I think the Southern Woodline had a little bit of raiding come in, but the key is the granaries are completely safe. He's up to 2,400 food income compared to the Mista's 600.
Yeah, I mean, but to be fair, like, Mista is not really training his units with food. He's spending mostly gold from the Farimba garrison on those military units. But it might be time for him to start transitioning, as he's having a hard time keeping villagers on these gold mines. And this is going to be a great trade for DeMusliM. Although that being said, the Musafati warrior is coming in with the extra bonus damage against heavy there, and he's going to be forced to retreat.
Yeah, and with those Musafari warriors, I know that they aren't like men-at-arms. They do extra damage to them, but what's the move speed comparison to like Palace Guards per se?
Yeah, it's the same. So they're both 1.38 tiles per second, so they're both quite speedy units.
Ooh,
and
huge
a nice raid there. He may have even used the stealth ability to get in there unseen. And yeah, getting a few vills there, and he's going to clean up the Palace Guards that are defending. And DeMusliM doesn't have a good way to defend this. He only has Palace Guards, and they get countered by the Musafati here, so that's going to be a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's starting to, we kind of talked about it. There was so much time that DeMusliM was just comfortable, had all his time to breathe. Well, now Mista's deciding to do a little bit of striking back with those Musafari warriors.
Yeah, and he's going to be ducking out of there into the stealth forest. The Palace Guards are chasing him. He could just turn. Yeah, he's just going to turn on them and clean them up. But in the main base, there's also a big fight going on. And there's not a lot of Musafati here, so the Palace Guards actually seem to be trading quite well.
Trebuchet's even trying to help out. And the nest of bees are what was kind of opted for to clean up that Musafari warrior raid. And at the same time, the main battle with that Palace Guards are going through, and the two Trebuchets are about to both get taken down, which are just such high value units right now. Oh, and more raids. It's just non-stop Palace Guards. That's all DeMusliM really cares for right now, as the Mista hasn't really been able to fully deny all this raiding coming through.
Yeah, and this is exactly what DeMusliM looks. Look at his resources behind this. He just dropped the Imperial Age landmark, and he still has 2,500 wood and 4,000 gold and 1,000 stone. His economy is crazy right now, and he's going to be super far ahead once he gets to Imperial and starts getting elite Palace Guards with that extra 30 HP tech, elite army tactics, and stuff like that. And Mista is going to have to follow him up to the next stage pretty soon here, or he's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is yet another town center is being dropped by the Mista, so he knows he's behind in that villager count. He's very, very safe in the military regards right now, as DeMusliM has just traded his military for taking economic damage on the opposite side. But this is the point where Imperial hits, and he can utilize everything to start getting a better military advantage, as he still has those nest of bees alive, and he can start getting the longer range hand cannoneers if he decides.
Yeah, and that's going to be very tough for Malians to deal with. It really feels like what Mista needs here is just more Musafati warriors. He has 51, but where are they? They haven't been there when he needs them to defend against the Palace Guards.
Yeah, it's almost like one of those things where you think about, spears against knights, and it's like, well, they need to be in the right positioning to actually be able to counter it with, I would say not quite as bad as spears against knights, because they have that same movement speed. But if you're just chasing them down, you can't really get that damage over time, as we see just, again, more and more raids coming in by DeMusliM.
Yeah, and Mista is going to be able to clean this up, and he almost has the resources to go Imperial behind this, but DeMuslim's already got Bombards in queue. He's finished elite army tactics. He's going to have his elite palace guards coming through. He's going to have a very strong push coming through soon. Even though his military count is pretty low, he's got a lot of nest of bees. He's got a lot of bombards, and yeah, this is going to be a tough window for Mista to hold, as he hasn't even placed his Imperial Age landmark yet.
He's still doing damage on the back of DeMusliM's eco. The big thing, like we said, it's just kind of been the name of the game this whole game, is that Mista has the military advantage, but is he going to transition that into, you know, the overall economic advantage as well, or is it going to be the reverse where DeMusliM finally transitions his Vil count lead and his age lead into, you know, fully snowballing the game?
Yeah, it looks like DeMusliM is working his way towards that. He's not comfortable pushing out just yet. I think he maybe doesn't have enough palace guards to defend that. But look, he's actually also gone for Yuan Dynasty, and he's starting to add in those Fire Lancers. And there's no walls or keeps or anything here for Mista to defend against Fire Lancers. And when you have like really exposed bonuses like pit mines or like cattle ranches, which, you know, are low HP and can be torched down.
Is that Imperial Age right in front of? Oh no.
That's the Fortress of the Huntress that's going to get denied. Yeah, this is going to be very tough for him to hold. He does have a lot of Musafati here, though. He could possibly trade okay here, but the Fire Lancer is going to get right onto the Spring Elves, and they do insane bonus damage.
And Bombards are here, too. Mista hasn't quite reacted yet. This just could be the game for DeMusliM. He has the siege on the back line that's going untouched. There's a battalion of Musafari warriors going towards that siege, but is it going to get there in time? As I think DeMusliM, he's fine with sacrificing the siege if he can fully deny this Imperial Age and do more damage here.
Yeah, and that landmark is not going to be going up. All the villagers on it are dead. The landmark was close to finishing, but he still needed just an extra 30 seconds, and yeah, he loses the whole army, he loses the landmark, and that's going to be GG going over to DeMusliM on the Chinese.
Yeah, perfect timing attack there, perfect spotting out that Imperial Age landmark, wiped the fight there with the Fire Lancer transition, and I mean, that Vilgraf doesn't tell the whole story with now. It's almost like when you play against the Delhi, where it's like, oh, look at how much gold they have. It's like, well, they didn't have to spend any gold on upgrades. It's like, it doesn't always tell you the whole story with the way the Malians work.
Yeah, well played from DeMusliM there. He'd made very good use of the mobility on the palace guards there to really keep Mista's army tied up. And Mista had a really cool strategy, but it just feels like he needed to do more earlier in the game, or he needed to maybe get a second town center up or something like that to really keep up with DeMusliM's boom. And yeah, like just maybe didn't switch into Musafati as early as he needed to, didn't recognize that China was likely going to go for palace guards and got run over as a result.
Yeah, there was that kind of one time where Mista decided to push forward, and DeMusliM, instead of defending his base, said, all right, I'll just counter push on my own. And Mista's reaction was, I need to pull back and defend it up. And it felt like from there, he was on the back foot the whole time. And it just let DeMusliM just boom up with China and just transition into everything and anything he wanted. Whereas Mista wasn't able to deny the constant just palace guard raids coming through.
Yeah, the whole game plan there for DeMusliM was just stall, 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 so my Song Dynasty can take off, so my economy can, you know, get over that 100 villager threshold, and then it's just going to be tough for Malians because China's reached that point in the game where they're really at their strongest.